Welcome in, Minnesota sports fans, to another edition of Vikings on SI. Jonathan Harrison here alongside Joe Nelson and Will Ragatz for our weekly prediction segment. Time to predict this weekend's games, and we're not just going to keep it to the Vikings-Texans game this weekend, boys. We've got another big football game this weekend. Gophers, Hawkeyes at Huntington Bank Stadium. The battle for the pig this weekend. Looking forward to that. We'll predict that later on, but let's jump right into this one. Will, you wrote up the article yesterday with all of our predictions, so let's jump into it. Joe, you can start, then Will. Your prediction for this game coming up Sunday, Vikings hosting the Texans, a battle of the undefeateds.
Wait a second, I haven't seen everybody's predictions online yet, so Nolan...
No, it's coming out today.
Okay.
Oh, okay, it's not even out yet. Okay, yeah. So this is like, you're going to have to fill us in, Will, on what the other guys have said since they're not on the video today. I'm guessing there's some negativity from half of us. I don't know where you're going, Will, on this one. I don't know what you're thinking, Jonathan. Jonathan, you're usually pretty optimistic, but I'm actually more nervous about this game than I was the 49ers matchup. And that's just based on kind of looking and investigating what the Texans are all about. And everything that I'm seeing right now is like, holy cow, outside of a couple of ugly quarters against the Bears last Sunday night, they've been hard to get off the field. That offense is really good. I think they're going to be really tough, whether Joe Mixon plays or not. Doesn't sound like he's going to play. There's some Nico Collins injury stuff that's out there, but it sounds like he'll be just fine. Him and Stephon Diggs and Tank Dell, I mean, man, that's going to be tough. But if the Vikings were able to kind of neutralize Deebo Samuel and Brandon Ayuk, I know Samuel had 8 for like 110. He was tough, but Ayuk was a non-factor. There's no reason they can't do the same to Nico Collins and Stephon Diggs, though I think Nico Collins is quietly erupting as maybe a top 5 receiver in the NFL the way he's going. I mean, my God. Some of the catches he made against the Bears on Sunday night on the sideline looked like Randy Moss and Chris Carter. It was impressive. So hands are going to be full. It's going to be really tough. And then C.J. Stroud's ability to shred defenses is a high level. So I think it's going to be super close. But in my prediction, it's going to be a bit of a shootout. I said that last week, and I was wrong. It was low scoring. You guys were right. But I'm taking the Vikings by a hair, 29-27.
Ooh.
Joe, you've been pretty spot on. I think you say 27-0 in the first game, and it was 28-6. And then you said the Vikings win by 6 last week, and they did. It was just you had
too many points.
A few more points on both sides. But, yeah, I agree with you that this game – I guess it's kind of hard for me to square a couple things where I look at the Texans roster and the talent on both sides of the ball, and Stroud, Collins, and the receivers, and Mixon, and then all the defensive guys they have. And I'm like, this might be tougher than the 49ers. But then I look at their actual results, and it's like you beat the Colts, who aren't very good, by 2. You beat the Bears, who aren't very good, by 6. Like, neither of those were convincing performances. I think the eye test still shows up for the Texans, but they've gotten off to a little bit of a slow start while being 2-0, I would say, relative to their talent level on paper. So they're going to need to play better than they have the last 2 weeks if they want to come into U.S. Bank Stadium against Kevin O'Connell and Brian Flores and get a win. And I'm still going with the Vikings this week. I'm on the 3-0 train with you. I think my final score is like going to be 27-23, something like that. Yeah. Where I think it'll be a little more high scoring, even though these are 2 very good defenses. I think C.J. Stroud will be able to put up a few points on the Vikings defense, but I also think that this Vikings offense, even likely without Jordan Addison again, can start to continue to find a rhythm. And the Texans defense is very good. Don't get me wrong, but I think the Vikings, Kevin O'Connell, they'll have a good plan. They'll be able to neutralize some of the pass rush with their tackles, and they'll be able to put up some points in this one. I think Sam Darnold plays well again. I think Justin Jefferson has another big game, and I think the Vikings get it done at home as home underdogs again and move to 3.
Man, I feel like I'm the biggest dissenter then. I'm the only dissenter on this stream.
I can tell you Tony is with you if you're in your dissenting ways.
What did Tony and Nolan put for their predictions before I give mine?
I'm waiting on Nolan, so I don't know from him. I'm assuming he might take a Vikings loss. Tony went with 27-17 Texans, a 10-point loss.
Okay.
Wow.
Well, then I'm definitely the biggest so far.
Oh
because
yeah,
I
Jonathan actually was more than that.
Yeah. I don't know.
What?
Yeah.
You have them losing by double digits?
27-14. Yeah.
What is up?
I'm okay. Don't get me wrong. I was super excited and still am super excited after the
you're
week 2
wrong.
win and convinced that this team can play well. But this Texans team scares me. As you guys have said, I think this is a bigger test for the Vikings because of what the Texans have shown on tape what the Texans have this season. That receiving core is going to be dangerous. CJ Stroud is a much better quarterback than Brock Purdy, and this is a big test for the Vikings. You don't think he is? I think he is. I think he's a much better quarterback than Brock Purdy, and this is a big test. And don't get me wrong, I think the 27-14 score for me, I wrote it that way, but I feel like it'll be just one of those late scores by the Texans that make it look worse than it is. But it just feels like this game, the Vikings kind of might maybe fall back to earth a little bit this weekend because of what's in front of them. I think not having Jordan Addison is really going to hurt the Vikings. Not having a secondary weapon for Sam Darnold to throw to. That pass rush by the Texans is pretty dang good. Yes, they're going up against 2 really good offensive tackles for the Vikings, but still, you're putting a lot on Sam Darnold to lead this team, and he's done it through 2 weeks. Can he do it for a third? If he does it, then I'm absolutely convinced that he can go far with this team, but I just want to see it for another week before I'm willing to say he's going to beat 2 top 10, top 5 teams in a row.
So what's happening here is that you're experiencing some inner ego stuff, your inner child, so to speak, from traumas of the past. As a Purple fan, they're acting up. You need to reparent that child right now and say this is not then. Your brain doesn't know that it's 2024, Jonathan. Your brain, when it was groomed, experienced a lot of trauma.
Yes.
Now what's happening is it's taking over, and you're not functional. You're dysfunctional. You're dysregulated right now. Everything that you've experienced in the past. I mean, come on, man. You just wrote a story about Stephon Diggs on Vikings on SI, being all excited to come back, and he's thankful for the Minnesota Nice. But at the very end of that story, you very functionally pointed out that only 4 members from that 2020 Vikings team are still here. This is a different era, man. These guys don't have the ghosts of Christmas past haunting them like you do, okay? So Sam Darnold's going to play a little bit more loose. He's going to have more confidence. 14 points is insulting, and the Vikings should take exactly what you said, have it playing on repeat on Jumbotron at US Bank Stadium Sunday morning as bulletin board material. That's insane. You're so wrong.
Forgive me for being a Minnesota sports fan for the past 30 years. And it's not like it's just limited to childhood traumas. That went well into my adulthood. I saw the 2017 Vikings get crushed, absolutely demolished by the Eagles when they opened up on the first drive and looked like they were going to run away and host the Super Bowl that year, and then just laid an egg for the remaining 17 drives of that game. Fear of
success.
Oh, absolutely.
And not knowing what to do when you are successful. That's when you start to tear yourself down.
I've texted friends, and I remember texting a friend in the middle of the 49ers game. I don't know what to do with the fact that Sam Darnold looks pretty dang good in this offense. I'm not comfortable with this fact.
Yeah.
And I won't be comfortable until he just demolishes the Texans. I'm willing to stand on this hill.
I've got Minnesota sports trauma from like literally yesterday watching the Twins. So I understand where Jonathan is coming from. It truly would not shock me if the Vikings were to just really fall back to earth, lay an egg, lose by 10-14. I mean, it would surprise me for sure, given what we've seen from them the first 2 weeks and what they just did against a very good 49ers team. But I can't say it would shock me because I think the precedent exists for, the Vikings looked very, very good to start the 2016 season. They were 5-0 and then ended up 8-8. Sam Darnold to start the 2021 season with the Carolina Panthers, I think he was 3-0 and putting up some really, really good numbers. And then obviously that did not continue the rest of the way. And his Carolina tenure was quite rocky. But I believe in this Vikings team quite a bit, actually, because of the coaching that we've talked about. And for me, it's Kevin O'Connell and it's Brian Flores. And those two guys and their game plans and the depth of this roster is going to have them in every game. But there is going to inevitably be a game or two or three or four this season where they just show up and they don't have their best stuff, and that happens. And really good teams can win despite that. But when you're facing a really good team, that gets a lot harder. So if the Vikings show up and for whatever reason on Sunday they just don't have it, or bounces don't go their way, or Darnold starts to make some turnover worthy plays that get caught. And I think the Texans could take advantage because they're that good. They have the disruptive pieces on defense. They have I think Nico Collins is top 4, top 3 receiver. He's in that conversation. The dude looks like Andre Johnson reincarnated. I mean, he is unbelievable. And C.J. Stroud's the best quarterback they've played this year, and quite possibly the best quarterback they'll play all year. I looking at the schedule. So, I have a Vikings win, to be clear. I think they win this game, but I don't think Jonathan's prediction is insane, because I too have watched the Vikings for my whole life and been burned a few times.
So there's some differences, I think, from this team early on and any team we've seen in recent memory. And one of the big ones that I've seen so far is that they're not, just through 2 games, playing up or down to the competition. Mm-hmm. Vikings teams of past would have gone to New York, and that would have been a freaking nail-biter. And that's a bad team. They would have played down. They wouldn't have blown them out like this version did. And then to come back and be resilient and do the same exact thing, play that same level for 4 quarters against the 49ers, even without some of your best pieces on the field, to me, that was a statement. That was a statement that things are different. Like, this is a culture that's now in the 3rd year under Kevin O'Connell, 2nd year under Brian Flores. This is starting to make sense to everybody. And the other thing that's different about the 2024 Minnesota Vikings is that I look up and down this roster, and I don't see any really spots where there's a lot of pressure on guys who are rookies or young. There's experience across the offensive line. Even Ed Ingram's in his 3rd season, right? 4th season, whatever it is by now. Across the defense, Ivan Pace is in his 2nd season. You have veteran cornerbacks in Stephon Gilmore and Byron Murphy Jr. and Shaq Griffin. Josh Metellus is not a young pup anymore. Cam Bynum's not a young pup. You've got one of the greatest safeties in NFL history back there to kind of help settle things down. Everywhere you look on this roster, there's no deer in the headlights moments, right? Even your running back, you have Aaron Jones. I mean, Sam Darnold's the one guy where you can look at and be like, oh man, he might have a deer in the headlights vibe every now and again. And maybe that'll happen, like you said, Will, once or twice. But
he's in his 7th. He's in his 7th season too. He's played a lot of football, and I think it's a testament to their depth. Like, the one rookie they were probably going to be counting on was Dallas Turner. He's not going to play in this game, but you don't really feel like that alters the outlook of the game with the way that Pat Jones has played and the way that Jahad Ward has played, and up and down. I mean, they can elevate Andre Carter or Bo Richter from the practice squad if they want and have another body in there. But like, Dallas Turner had a sack in the first game, and he looks like he's going to be a really good player. But like, they're so deep that not having him this week doesn't really change how I feel about the defense. You're right. Yeah,
Patrick Jones. The great highlight he had against the 49ers was bull rushing Trent Williams and making the All-Pro spin around. Yeah. And you know what? He's got Laramie Tunsil this week on that side of the line. Tunsil's a monster. He's going to be very good. But I would be more worried if I'm the Texans and looking at my tackles and the guys that are rushing from the other side in purple and gold than I am the Vikings and looking at Will Anderson, Danielle Hunter, and this great group of Texans defenders. And there's one very specific reason why. I'm worried about Will Anderson, no matter who he's going against. But if there's one tackle in this league who knows every weakness of Danielle Hunter, it's Brian O'Neill, right? Yeah. Like, and you can say the same thing for Danielle Hunter too. He knows every single weakness for O'Neill. They're going to offset each other. I think there's going to be a lot of stalemates. I don't anticipate seeing a whole lot of Danielle Hunter in the backfield, to be honest with you, because O'Neill just knows how to go up against him after years and years of practice with him. So this is a really nice opportunity for Minnesota to kind of neutralize a great pass rusher in his return to Minnesota. And that's another reason why, Jonathan, you're wrong. And the Vikings are going to come out here swinging. It'll be a tight game for sure. They sure as hell are not losing by double digits. No way.
And the Texans' right tackle, Titus Howard, is kind of just a guy. So I think Andrew Van Ginkel will probably get a lot of that matchup. And I expect Gink to have another big game.
Yeah, Gink's going to have a great game. Grenard's going to have a great game.
Grenard's going to get a sack for sure.
Well, the right side of that offensive line is Shaq Griffin, the right guard, and then Howard is the right tackle. Those two have allowed a combined 11 or 12 pressures already this season. So that's as many as Ed Ingram and Garrett Bradbury have allowed, which gives you some context about how bad they've been on the right side of that line. I think Stroud's been sacked 7 times this year. None of them, I looked at the stats, none of them are on Stroud. So it's not like he's holding on to the ball too long. That's just bad pass blocking in situations. So good opportunity for the Vikings to get after Stroud and make his life hell.
We say that, but Will, you had an interesting note about C.J. Stroud against pressure yesterday in the video. If you still have that,
yeah, it was against the blitz. He's he's the highest graded quarterback in the NFL this year against the blitz, 17 of 20. You know who number 2 is? It's Sam Darnold, which is kind of funny. But yeah, C.J. Stroud's been good against the blitz. He's not going to panic against this Brian Flores scheme. He's an extremely smart quarterback. He can maneuver in the pocket. He can make all the throws. He can get out of the pocket and make throws on the run. Interestingly, he has thrown what PFF deems 4 turnover-worthy plays.
Yeah.
I don't know if those are all passes. I think those can be fumbles too, but that's more than you'd expect from a quarterback like him through 2 weeks. So if he's loose with the ball at all, the Vikings will take advantage.
I think he had 18 TWPs all of last season.
Yeah.
So this is a little bit of a rockier start, I guess you could say, from that one statistical perspective.
He's been very good overall, nonetheless.
No interceptions. I mean, the guy's thrown 29 touchdowns and 5 picks in his 19 career games, including the playoffs. So, he doesn't give it up very much. If there's a defense that can take it from him, it might be this Vikings team who looks very good. But again, it's going to be a nail biter, man. I really believe so.
I'm looking forward to it. Let's go into some of these matchups. Sam Darnold, who's been topic of discussion quite a bit today, went over 250 yards last week, 268 yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception against the 49ers. Does he go over 250 or even 300 this weekend against the Texans?
I think 300 is stretching it. I think he'll end up the same place he's been the first 2 weeks, which is in the 200 to 275 range, somewhere in there. Maybe throw 2 more touchdowns. I mean, the tradition is you throw 1 touchdown to Justin Jefferson and you throw 1 touchdown to Jalen Naylor that he's wide open in the end zone because Kevin O'Connell schemes it up. And then Naylor fakes like he's going to block, and then everyone forgets about him because he's the number 3 receiver and they don't know who he is. But I think the Texans are going to know who Jalen Naylor is a little more. I think Darnold has a similarly strong performance. Maybe another 2 touchdowns and a pick like he's done every game so far this year.
Well, I mean, you don't score 29 points very often without pushing up the yardage. So I will say he's right around the 300-yard mark on Sunday.
If he doesn't go
maybe he runs for a little bit too.
Yeah, we saw that against the 49ers. If he doesn't go over 250, does that make it harder for the Vikings to win? Do they need to rely on him this weekend a little bit more?
It all depends. I mean, if they're running the ball well with the Jones-Chandler duo, the Texans, I believe, have been quite stout against the run so far this year against I get Jonathan Taylor week 1 and then DeAndre Swift last week. But yeah. I think the Vikings will commit to running the ball. I mean, they really want to do that. So if
Aaron Jones still hasn't gone over 100 yards this season.
Yeah, if they're able to do that efficiently with those 2 guys, then Darnold doesn't have to have a huge game for them to win.
Yeah, if he doesn't go over 250, it means one of 2 things. Either they're running the ball well or he's turning it over. I think it's as simple as that.
Yeah. There's revenge games angles all over the place for this one. We already mentioned Danielle Hunter. Stephon Diggs, only 70 yards catching off of 10 receptions this season. So he does have 2 touchdowns. Does he go over 100? How much does he impact this game this weekend?
I think he'll be a part of it, but Nico Collins is the alpha for CJ Stroud. He's the guy that the Vikings really have to limit and not let him kind of wreck the game. And then I would keep an eye on Tank Dell as well. I think Diggs might be 3rd on the list of receivers I'm concerned about because Tank Dell has done very little so far this year. But I mean, his rookie season, he showed quite the connection with Stroud, and they've been like just an inch or two or a drop or two away from some big connections. So keep an eye on Tank Dell as well.
So, this is an interesting matchup for the reason that Joe Mixon and Dameon Pierce probably aren't going to play. That
Cam
leaves
Akers.
that leaves Cam Akers, and the Cam Akers revenge game is a fun little narrative, and he has some juice every now and again to him, but this is likely a one-dimensional Texans offense on Sunday, which should favor the Vikings. And again, it might mean some bigger numbers for their wide receivers, but in the grand scheme of things, it definitely benefits Minnesota. So you might look at Diggs on Sunday afternoon at 3 o'clock and see like 8 catches for 90 yards. You might look at Nico Collins and see some similar numbers, and Stroud puts up 300 yards. But overall, most of their yardage is probably coming through the air if Cam Akers is your number one running back. So the yardage will be there. But I wouldn't look at Diggs' final stat line as something indicative of the result.
Yeah, this will be certainly an interesting one that I know Joe is upset with me that I'm not predicting the Vikings within 2 scores. Joe, you are predicting, however, the Gophers to just demolish Iowa, it feels like, getting a 2-score win this weekend. So let's go through our Iowa Gophers predictions here to end the show here. Joe, I'll let you start, Will, then you go next, and then I'll wrap it up.
Well, I know we've talked a lot about how Caleb Johnson's this elite running back for the Iowa Hawkeyes. It doesn't seem to matter who they have back there. They're going to have an alpha dog in the backfield who's going to put up some numbers. But the Gophers did a pretty good job against Omari and Hampton, despite missing 20 tackles in the season opener. I just think this is a really high-end Gophers defense. And we could be looking at another one-dimensional Iowa offense. So if you're one-dimensional against this Gophers team and they're ball hawks like they are, 7 interceptions through 3 games, I don't see Iowa doing much through the air. And I think the Gophers are going to be the best defensive team. Iowa State's solid too. They're a top 20 team right now in the country, and they went into Iowa City and won in week number 2. I think you see a similar struggle on offense for the Hawkeyes. Caleb Johnson can't do it by himself. If Minnesota, as long as they continue to throw the ball with a purpose, like they have the last couple of weeks against FCS caliber teams, and not like they did in week number 1 against North Carolina, come out and throw some punches, get aggressive on offense, I think they run away with this thing. 2-touchdown victory, 27-13 is my prediction. I don't see Iowa scoring many points, and I think Minnesota has a chance to really ease their way to a rare game, ease their way in a rare game against Iowa.
Yeah, I think it'll be low scoring on both sides. With Iowa, Caleb Johnson, you mentioned him. He's the leading rusher in the country. He's ran for 2 touchdowns in every game. He's easily cleared 100 yards in every game. I just think he'll give the Gophers some problems because they were all right against Hampton in the opener, but he got his in that game. And I just think it's going to be one of those weird games where it's a Big Ten rivalry game. It's prime time. You're coming back to that level of physicality after not having seen it at all in the last 2 games playing against Cupcakes. And I think the Gophers defense is good. But I think Iowa wins 16-13 largely because I think Max Brosmer, I want to see it. I've never seen him play against a Big Ten team. I saw him play against North Carolina and look awfully shaky. And maybe the experience of playing easier teams the last couple of weeks will help him get rolling. But I have a feeling that he's going to be a little shaky in this one against the speed and the physicality of Iowa's defense. So I've got Iowa winning a close one, low scoring.
That I could see that happening, and we might know within the first couple of drives when Minnesota has the football. If Brosmer doesn't look good in the first couple of drives, it's going to be a long day. I just, you can get overwhelmed in those matchups. You can do it against Rhode Island competition in the FCS at New Hampshire all day long, every day, and lead the country in passing like he did last year. But if he starts out shaky like he did against North Carolina, my tune will certainly be changing. I think that North Carolina was a little bit of an anomaly because first game with
week 1, yeah,
tough matchup. I mean, North Carolina's coming in; they're undefeated right now. They look good. right? Even with their backup quarterback, because Brad Johnson's kid's leg broke at Huntington Bank Stadium.
Yeah.
This is a test, certainly. But if he comes out and he's able to throw the football like he's shown the last 2 weeks, there's no reason he can't. I mean, PJ Fleck, everybody said it after that North Carolina game. That's not who we've seen for the last, 8, 9, 10 months since he got here last December and started practicing in maroon and gold. So, could be shaky, but you're going to be wrong, Will. There's no way the Gophers lose this game. No way.
Tony and Nolan both have Iowa winning. Tony saying 13-10 Iowa. Nolan agreeing with Will on the 16-13 scoreline. I have the Gophers winning in a close one, 14-10. I believe in this Gophers defense. I've liked what I've seen. Say what you want about the opposition. Getting 2 shutouts in a row is still something that you have to take note of. Whether it is Rhode Island or Nevada, you still have to take note of how good that defense is. This Iowa offense, they got a good running game. The passing game still something to behold. The Iowa passing defense, though, has given up over 200 yards passing in each of their last 2 games. So if the Gophers are going to win, they're going to have to rely on Max Brosmer a little bit more than I'd assume PJ Fleck would want to do. So as you said, Joe, it's all about what we see in the first couple drives from Max Brosmer. And that's why I'm not willing to go to the level you are, Joe, of saying 27-13. If Brosmer starts looking good in those, if he comes out looking good, then I'm willing to up this score line here. But I think right now, Minnesota 14, Iowa 10 is my prediction.
So what you guys are trying to tell me is that the backup quarterback and the third stringer from Troy are on the same level as Max Brosmer. And those guys, the backup looked pretty damn good against that Hawkeyes defense at Kinnick. So, yeah. Okay.
I just think Big Ten rivalry games are weird, and they're gonna be, especially in between these teams in the West. They're often low scoring, they're physical, they're intense. I did not admittedly watch any of Iowa Troy. I know you were a little dialed in on that one. I can't attest to is it the Troy Trojans and what they were doing on offense, but I just think that maybe that's a weird one that Iowa shakes off, and they didn't play very well, and they'll come ready to go for a night game at Huntington Bank especially after what we all know happened last year in this Florida-Rosedale matchup.
I think the reason a lot of these trophy games are so close is because the style of play for as long as we can remember has been garbage. And that's changing with Max Brosmer. And that's the caveat, right? Are the Gophers going to resort back to the days of 50 carries and 15 passes that are in
PJ Fleck is still the head coach.
They're so predictable. Every Wisconsin Gophers game, every Iowa Minnesota game, it's always like that. That's going to change. That should be changing. And if it doesn't, fireable, it really is, in my opinion. You got to change. You got to adapt to the times. This is new age. It's 2024. Maybe PJ Fleck's had some traumas too, and his brain doesn't know that it's 2024. And if his inner ego steps up on Saturday, he'll call run plays all day long, and we'll have just a slosh fest. Just crap, right? There is a chance of rain Saturday night too, by the way, which could impact things. Although it looks like on the models it could stay to the southeast. Could be some heavy stuff, though, if it does arrive. But again, you guys are victims of trauma. Yep. You need to live in the moment, regulate yourselves, become functional, and look at what's happening now. With throwing the ball, it's not a slosh fest, and Iowa sucks.
I think I am living in the moment when I'm realizing PJ Fleck is still the head coach, and he had, under 200 yards passing against North Carolina when you have Max Brosmer, who we've talked about and said that he's got the talent. It's just PJ Fleck holds this offense back a lot of times, and that concerns me. So
it is. The last thing I'll say is, I fully hope that the Minnesota football teams go 2-0 this weekend. If they don't, I think Joe's going to have some things to answer for on this YouTube channel early next week. That's all I'll say. I hope he gets to gloat and talk about a couple wins, but we'll see.
We might just have to, if that happens, if they go 2-0 and they run roughshod over their opponents like he's predicting, we might just have to start the video and then just leave for the next 20 minutes while Joe just dances on us for
Here's
the entire
a better idea. Here's a better
minutes.
idea. You both find yourselves a couch, you lay down on it, and talk to me. And I'll bring you back to reality. Okay?
Sounds good.
Yeah.
We'll see. Joe, you mentioned the weather there. I got to go actually make the weather video for today or edit it all together. So go watch that over on the Bring Me the News YouTube channel in about an hour's time. But boys, it's been fun talking to you and predicting these games. Looking forward to it. We'll have recaps of both of them right here on the YouTube channel. Tony with the recap of Hawkeyes Gophers late Saturday night. Will, you with a recap of Vikings Texans Sunday evening. Looking forward to that, and you can watch those right back here on the Bring Me the Sports YouTube channel. Make sure to click subscribe so you get notified when those come in and when those are posted, so you can go and watch them, and hit like on our videos. It does help us as well. Boys, we'll talk to you coming up Monday right back here as we review all the weekend's action. Looking forward to it. Minnesota sports fans, talk to you then.